we're going to talk a little bit about some of the different use cases we've seen for empty states and like the values that they bring, and then do a little bit more of a roundtable about what you're working on. And then if we have time at the end, we might walk through some of the stuff that we're building here when we're thinking about empty states for that freemium use case that Adam was talking about.
This is a question for you, Adi.
Yeah.
All right. You got to guess. Who is it?
I want you to know that we went through this question yesterday, and Adam told me that he was friends with Mark Zuckerberg at one point on the internet.
Yeah.
So.
And then I think I messaged him and he unfriended me like 5 years ago, something like that. Because I think in the beginning, Mark would be your first friend. I think it was like an empty state tactic.
Were you an early adopter of Facebook? I feel like I wasn't early enough on the train.
I had my account in 2006. So not super early, but relatively early.
When Mark was still your friend.
Yeah, when Mark,
Tom.
I think I had a MySpace account. I know I had friends who had a MySpace account, but like this is an example of an empty state where somebody joins MySpace and instead of just having 0 friends and no content to interact with, they pre-populated a friend. And so this was like growth literature as like an early tactic of a way to get early users, particularly on a social network, to engage. So wanted to share a couple different examples of empty states in the pipeline. So obviously empty states have a wide variety of use cases, from showing the personality of the product, like Push Owl has on the loading screen, like loading screens are effectively an empty state as well, right? Where Georgia, when you sign up for Push Owl, there's a little owl and it's got those glasses, the thug life glasses, those. And so like the owl head spins, right? So it gives you personality, delighting users, obviously, but then also advancing the customer journey. And so for the purposes of this roundtable in getting users through the pipeline and upgrading, I thought we'd just focus on the customer journey. So just a couple examples right off the bat. When you're getting users to sign up, you can take advantage of your login page to either share key features or testimonials of your product. This is something that we're now experimenting with as we're introducing a new sign up flow for our product. So we're going to be dropping in a testimonial on the right side because it's basically an empty space. Then
I also think
when
one
users,
interesting thing about sign up pages is that sometimes, like if you're Googling a company, the sign in page will come up. And if you have users who haven't actually signed up before and they get to the sign in page and can't figure out like how to get into your product, it can be a blocking state. So using the sign in page to make sure that people who haven't actually entered that flow yet have the opportunity to do it without needing to like find extra buttons to click is a really nice way to boost engagement, even if it's not for like a huge number of people. It's just a way to make sure that people aren't falling out of the funnel if they end up on the wrong page.
Obviously, this resonates, I imagine, with you, Rochelle, when you're entering a product and there's just nothing to do. So how do you prompt users to take the next action? This is kind of like a funny one that Webflow uses as well.
Yeah, I really like this idea of, particularly like if you're starting with a survey is an easy way for users to get started and like they can answer a couple of questions. I think there's a company called Monday.com that is sort of like a Trello equivalent. It's like a project management software, but they make you sort of name your persona and talk a little bit about yourself in your sign up process. And then they auto populate the empty state so that you're not coming into a blank page. They give you a couple of suggestions of boards you might want or content you might want to start with. And it's sort of, say like, it's sort of just a marketer, right?
It'll have like a content marketing template.
Yeah. Oh, okay, I feel like that's such a genius way to start because like, I don't know, like starting a novel or starting with a blank notebook, like all of that is so stressful. Where if you're editing something that already exists, there's like a little bit more clear action items and you don't feel like you're gonna, I don't know, like even we use Notion and they provide a set of templates that you can use. And so I know sometimes when I've been starting projects and haven't really been sure where to start, having something that you can work off of where you're editing something instead of starting with like a literal blank page is so much like more motivating as a user.
Yeah, true. Yeah, actually, speaking of which, got a screenshot of Trello. So they start you off like some pre-populated content. So this is a platform called Segment, which is for tracking your customer data. And so particular features are gated. So only when you click on them, you discover that, oh, I don't have access to this particular feature. And what general best practices we've seen is that you have some type of call to action or like value, or rather value proposition, right? So in this case, like drive customer engagement and revenue, and then usually some illustration or a video, and then whatever the call to action is, in this case, like talk to sales.
The idea behind Candu is really that a lot of people who are running SaaS applications or even like WordPress sites, anything, you don't necessarily need an entire website builder, but there are elements of your UI that right now need to be owned by an engineering team who could otherwise be working on like core functionality of your logic. And there's parts of the UI that you probably want to update pretty frequently that an engineer, like if you have to put in a ticket for an engineer every single day to be like, oh, I want to update this copy, I want to change this button, that gets pretty cumbersome. And so the idea with Candu is that we built this really sort of simple drag and drop editor so you can build UI components and install them on just like one page of your application. And a lot of what we've seen here are people building like these welcome dashboards or onboarding checklists or announcement bars or other things that a marketing team or a product marketer like Adam maybe wants to have control over and wants to be able to update regularly as new features come out.
Or I have a workshop coming up.
Exactly. I have a workshop coming up.
Yeah.
Or like
we
built our
little,
onboarding
like,
checklist.
Yeah, you'll see it. Georgia will show you.
Yeah, we built our onboarding checklist with Candu. And like at one point we realized that a ton of people were missing a key step in onboarding. And so like, instead of waiting and trying to like experiment and find out if that was really like a huge problem for everyone, we just added that as a step to the checklist to see if that improved. And like, we got 80% fewer support tickets about that question. So it just means that you can iterate a little bit faster over key parts of your UI without needing to like ask someone else to do it. It puts a little bit more of the power in the hands of non-engineers. And the other cool thing about it, which I'm not going to spend time on today, but if you're interested in it, is that we built in some user segmentation. So a lot of the time, like what we're talking about now is when you do a really good user onboarding, those steps become irrelevant as soon as someone has gone through onboarding and you want to teach them how to get deeper into your product. And so you can create user segments for first-time users or people who haven't done like XYZ activation step, and you can give them an onboarding checklist. And then admins or people who have been in your product for a long time, you can use that same, whatever it is, dashboard space or announcements bar space or whatever, and provide them with like content about how to get deeper into your product or upcoming workshops or whatever. Not everyone needs to see all of the same content all the time. And so we wanted to create a way for people to publish that kind of thing to different users in the same space. And I can actually show you an example really quickly of what we're working on right now. So speaking of empty states, we have this segmentation idea that I'm just talking about. So you can go in and create a ton of new user segments. But Adam mentioned earlier, we're working on sort of like this freemium model. So this is for more enterprise growth clients who have a ton of different user segments. For some of our really early stage startups we might work with or individual businesses, they really just want to create a dashboard. They don't need to segment it out. And so what might be a better fit for them is this freemium model in which segments wouldn't be available. And obviously, if we're trying to drive upgrades, we want people to see that segmentation exists. We want them to be thinking about that, but we don't necessarily want them to be able to just add segments whenever. And so what we're working on right now is our designer passed over these designs for what would look like an upgrade page for the empty state if someone clicked on segments and didn't actually have access to them. And this is the Candu editor. This is sort of like the core part of what Candu is. So you'll see on the left, we have sort of like this design suite of different tools that you can use that you can drag onto the page. So for instance, if I wanted to do like an upgrade button, I can just drag that over onto the page and center it. I can change out the text. I can really edit all of this content whenever I want to as just like me, a non-engineer. And then all I need to do is just add it to that segments page for the user segment that's in our freemium content users. And anyone who comes to this page will be able to interact with this content where all of our other users will continue to see their actual user segments. So it's a fun way, if you do a little bit of UI, it's a fun way to update certain pages, particularly things like empty states where you might want to change the content or where you might want to segment out the content. It's a nice solution for that.
Actually, Georgia, can you show our dashboard? Just give
totally. That's a great point.
Example.
Yeah, so we actually built our entire, like the first page you see when you enter our product is built entirely with Candu, and our designer just built a whole new dashboard for us. So that'll be coming out in a couple of days, but you can see we have a welcome banner that for some of our enterprise clients, we customize with like their logo or specific announcements for them. And then webinars.
To make mention, so an ideal user experience is where the content on the page aligns with where the user is in their journey. So a key milestone for new users of Candu is to install the Chrome extension, which you can see that little purple thing on the right there. And so when somebody first signs up for the product, that welcome banner actually is like the call to action to install the Chrome extension. That's like literally the first thing that we want you to do when you sign up for the product. So you can, so it's literally the same component. Yeah. So so this is what Georgia was saying about like segmentation, where you've got the same component, but you're changing the content for different user segments based on where they are in their journey.
Yeah. And then to our point earlier, so like I haven't completed my onboarding checklist, but if you're a new user to Candu, we start you with sort of our marketing video, because I think we were having the problem that people were inviting other people to their accounts and they didn't really understand the context of the product they were coming into. So we provided the marketing video as sort of like the first step, a really easy step to check off, like good for people to feel like they're making progress. And then we give them like a quick set of things that we want them to do as their sort of first activation steps. And then when people actually complete this checklist, we change this into a news feed. So it'll say like more upcoming events, like relevant blog posts based on your use case, that kind of thing is what we'll fill in here. But the idea is that it should be really quick and easy to get started. And then once you've gotten started, we want to be giving you like greater detail on resources that might be interesting to you, as opposed to sort of keeping you in this onboarding flow indefinitely. Cool. So yeah, those are some of the things we're thinking about with MD States. One is like this onboarding dashboard, how you think about getting started. Another one is like the pricing and upgrade features. And obviously, like, I'm sure there will be a million more that will come up. I'm sure Adam's thinking of some more right now.
Yeah, sign up page. One thing we're working on right now. So having a testimonial bang right on the sign up page, because we have kind of like a vertical split between a left panel and a right panel.